Have you ever wondered what's really going on behind the closed doors of your school's admission office? Or do you think that it is everything that's going on inside there that they are telling the public? Have you not seen students with very low Jamb scores getting admitted into professional courses in universities, courses that are very competitive and even have very high cutoff marks, but these students with poor grades are getting admitted into those courses? Or have you not seen students with high Jamb scores or good post-UTME scores not getting admitted into these same professional courses that these students with low Jamb scores got admitted into? Have you not wondered what's really going on inside this office? Let me ask again, if you don't get, how many times have you seen university professor kids or even university administrators kids relating the Jamb exam more than 2 times in the same school their parents are lecturing, or in the same school that their parents are professors? Like, you rarely see it. Even politicians' kids, how many times have you seen them relating the Jamb exam more than 2 times? Something is really going on. For your information, in this video I'll explain to you all you need to know about why this happens and how you can also take advantage of it. You would have probably heard about some reasons why these anomalies happen in the Nigerian university admission processes, but if you can stay to the end of this video, I'll be revealing to you a secret quota that the university systems or the school systems have decided to keep secret from the public, so that you are informed and be able to secure a space in your school's admission list. But first, I'll start from the basics, which is the one they have already made known to the public. I'll then move to the unknown, which they have decided to keep as a secret from the public. After writing Jamb and you have seen your scores, the next trend or the most asked questions on the internet now is, what is the cutoff mark for so and so school? But then there are some things you need to know about the cutoff mark. The cutoff mark is the minimum score you must have to be considered for admission in a particular university. Now, there are 2 types of cutoff marks that you should know. Number 1 is the university or the Jamb general cutoff mark, and number 2 is the departmental cutoff point. Now, I'll explain the university or the Jamb general cutoff mark in brief. Now, the university or the Jamb general cutoff mark is the minimum score that you must have in Jamb to be able to apply for a particular school's post-UTME or their screening exercise. This means that before you can register for a school's post-UTME or their screening exercise, there is a minimum score that they require that you must have in Jamb. Every institution, both polytechnics and universities, have their own minimum cutoff mark before you can be able to register for their post-UTME. For UNN, I think is around 160, UI should be around 200. And OAU have their own, so do other schools in Nigeria. Schools mainly release these general cutoffs when they are about to release their post-UTME. Before, this cutoff was being regulated by Jamb, but now Jamb has delegated the power to universities, so universities are responsible for setting their own general cutoff. So if the general cutoff for UNN is 160, you can apply for any course you want, provided that you scored 160 and above. I know one of the questions that you might have in your mind right now is, okay, I scored 180 in my Jamb, can I still apply for medicine? Yeah, if the school's general cutoff mark is below 180, yes, you can apply for medicine with 180 in Jamb. But can you get admitted into medicine with this score? Just hold on a second. In this video, I'll explain everything for you. I also know that one of the most asked questions on the internet now is, can I get admitted into this course with this score? Just stay with me, because at the end of the video you will realize whether it's possible or not, because it's a matter of so many factors. Another important point that you should jot down is that if you score below a university's general cutoff, if you score below their general cutoff, you're not eligible to even register for their post-UTME. The second type of cutoff mark that you should know is the departmental cutoff mark or their cutoff point. It's a minimum cutoff set by each department of the school you are applying for before they can be able to give you admission. That means law have their own cutoff point, medicine have their own cutoff point, mass communication have theirs, pharmacy have theirs, and so on and so forth. Every department in the school have their own cutoff. This cutoff is mainly determined after your post-UTME or whatever screening exercise that the school you are applying for are using, and it's a combination of your post-UTME and your Jamb score. Different schools use different methods for determining this cutoff. For some, they use 50% of Jamb and 50% of post-UTME. For some others, they use 60% of Jamb and 40% of post-UTME. it depends on the school. Some can even use 70% of Jamb and 30% of post-UTME. Some can even use up to 100% of Jamb. But according to the Jamb admission guidelines for universities, the percentage allotted to your UTME score should range from 50% to 100%. Obviously, this departmental cutoff point is always higher than the Jamb or the university's general cutoff. And most times, why the cutoff point for some departments are very high is just because the number of students applying for that course have great Jamb and post-UTME scores. Remember, we have not yet gotten to the most important secret you need to know about what is really going on behind the closed doors of these admission offices. But we will get there in a moment. We just need to cover some basics. If you scored above the Jamb or the university's general cutoff, then this second category is where you need to pay more attention to. Just because of the fact that students scored high in their post-UTME and their UTME exams is not the only factor that explains the reason why the departmental cutoff marks are always high. In fact, the first and the most important factor they consider before releasing the departmental cutoff mark is the number of candidates that should be admitted into a particular course. NUC, which is the Nigerian University Commission, have a particular number which they expect the universities not to exceed while offering admission to its students. So no matter how good your score is, the university has to respect these guidelines from the Nigerian University Commission. So imagine that 10,000 students are applying to study medicine in a particular university, let's say UNN, but around 5,000 students of these 10,000 students scored above 300, and among these 5,000, the NUC or the Nigerian University Commission have already told that particular university that they should only admit around 120 students. What do you think, or how do you think that the cutoff mark is going to look like? That is why no matter how good the Jamb pass rate is, they just have to stick to that particular number that NUC have given to them. But then you need to ask yourself, do they always stick to this number, or do they not exceed it? Just hold on a moment, you will soon find out. There's a formula that the federal and the state universities use for giving admission, and it's important that you understand these formulas which they have made public before we even get to the secret ones they are keeping from us. And it's important that you know this formula because it will help you to make better decisions, and where I made mistakes, you won't make the same mistakes, because I made so many mistakes just because I didn't know about this formula. Once they determine the total number of students that will be admitted into a particular department in a particular year, let's say NUC has given a particular university, let's say UNN should admit only 100 students in medicine in the merit admission list. The university is not just going to give admission to the 100 best performing students that are applying for that particular course in that particular year. They have a formula they use as directed by Jamb, and it is also backed by the Nigerian law. For federal universities, the formula is in the form of 45-35-20 ratio. So what do I mean by the 45-35-20 ratio? It means that there are 3 ways that your name can appear on the merit admission list. But before I go further, why not click on the subscribe button, like the video, and also turn on your notification bell. Is very important, because most times when I release my videos, especially the first few hours that I release videos or the first few days, I am always available to respond to your messages. After then, I am most choked up with my academics. So if you want me to be replying your comments immediately, just click on the notification icon, because whenever I release video, YouTube will tell you that I've released video and you can watch it, and when you ask questions, I'll be able to reply you as fast as possible. As I was saying, there are 3 ways your name can appear on the merit admission list, and the ratio, as I mentioned earlier, is 45-35-20. And what is the meaning of this ratio? I will explain. 45 there means 45%. And what does 45% mean? The 45% means the national merit. And to explain this, let me use medicine as a case study. Let's say NUC has already directed the University of Ibadan to only admit 100 students in their merit list into medicine. So what the university would do would be to list the number of students that wrote for that particular course in that particular year, and they will list their names according to their scores in descending order. That is from the highest score to the lowest score. score, and they're going to take 45% of the students they should admit. Remember, the total number of students they are meant to admit is 100. So 45% of 100 is 45, and these 45 people represents the 45% ratio. Then after collecting these 45 people, no matter your state, no matter where you are coming from, no matter your country, it is independent of your state of origin. So this one is pure merit. There are no bias. The main thing for you to get into this ratio or to get admitted while considering this ratio is to be among the top 45 students that are applying for that course. That is, if they have decided to only give admission to 100 students in that particular course. I hope you understand. Now let me get to the 35% ratio. This 35% ratio represents the catchment area of merit. So what's the meaning of catchment area? Maybe you've heard it before. Catchment area means the neighboring states of a particular university, including the particular state that the university itself is located. So let me use Obafemi Awolowo University as an example. The university is located in Osun State. So the catchment area will most likely be the southwestern states, and the states around the university will include Osun State, Oyo State, Ogun State, and Ekiti State. That is 5. They are the 5 catchment areas for OAU, that's Obafemi Awolowo University. Each university have their own catchment areas, and some universities even have up to 7 catchment areas, some even have up to 10 catchment areas. So before applying for a university, you first need to know their catchment area and know whether your state is among the catchment areas, which would help increase your odds in getting admission into such university. Remember, as I mentioned earlier, that catchment area has a total of 35% of students that will be admitted into that particular department. So from the case study that we are using University of Ibadan as a case study, and we are using 100 students as a case study. That is the total number of students that NUC have already told them to admit in that particular department. So how many of these 100 students are going to be coming from the catchment areas? It is going to be just 35 students, because 35% of 100 students is 35. So how are they going to divide this among these catchment areas? Let's imagine the school that we are using has only 5 catchment areas. Among these 5 catchment areas, it means 5 for each state. So what they are going to do is to take like the 5 top best performing students in those states that are applying for that particular course. So what they will do is to arrange the number of students that are applying for this particular course from these catchment areas. They will arrange their names in descending order of their scores. That means from the highest to the lowest, and they will now choose the top 5 best. And if your name is already in the first merit list, that is the national merit list, your name is not going to be included while considering names in this catchment area. I know that my explanations might be very confusing and complex to you, but just stay with me. Very soon I will explain everything in just a nutshell, and you can be able to remember them even without even thinking about it. And also remember that we are still in the basics. We have not even gotten to the secret parts of the admission process that you need to know. We'll get there in a moment. Another important thing you need to note is that the national merit is always higher than the catchment area cutoff marks. After they are done compiling names from the catchment areas and the national merit, we know that it is now already 80 students already. Remember that we are trying to admit only 100 students into the Department of Medicine, and we have already gotten to 80. So where are they going to get the next 20 students from? Remember, I gave you guys the formula of 45, 35, 20. So where they're going to get the next 20 students from to fill up this department is from the 20, which is the 20% also referred as the educationally less developed states. So the meaning of this educationally less developed states quota is just a preferential treatment that the federal government have decided to give to some particular states in Nigeria that are very backward in education. So the federal government are just looking for a way to make sure that indigenes from that state get admitted into universities. And the majority of these states are the northern states of Nigeria, and most of these states, I'll paste them on the screen. They include Ebonyi State, Kaduna, Kano, and the rest. It doesn't matter how many students they get from each state, provided that in the end they get a total of 20 students, which will now be added to the 80 students that are remaining in our list. Even if they get 1 student per state from these educationally less developed states. So if your name is not in the national merit list and is not in the catchment area list, then it could be in the educationally less developed state list. That is, if your state is among. That is why most times when I get questions like, can I study medicine with 180, or can I study this particular course with this particular score, I'll be like, I don't know. Who knows? You might be from an educationally less developed state and you are applying to study medicine at UNN, and you have already crossed the first general cutoff mark, which is like 160. If you cross that score and maybe you are from Kaduna State, you might be admitted. Who knows? And another factor that determines this is that maybe people that are applying from that particular state, maybe Kaduna, are few and they have lower scores than you. Trust me, you are going to get admission, because no matter what, they are going to take someone from that particular state that is among the educational less developed states. That is why sometimes you will see students with 310, they are not getting admission into medicine, but you see someone with 180 studying medicine. So far you have seen that there are 3 ways you can get admitted into federal universities in their merit list, and number 1 includes the national merit, the catchment area, and the educationally less developed states. So if your state is not among the educationally less developed states and your state is not among the catchment areas, that means you only have a hope of getting admitted into the national merit, and which is mostly competitive. So use your head, and while choosing universities, go for those universities that your state could be among their catchment areas. So that is it for federal universities. As for state universities, the formula they use is 10, 35, 55, and this 10% represent the national merit quota, and the 35% is for indigenes of that particular state. So for you to get admission into a state university, you will be more advantaged to apply for universities in your state. That means if you're not an indigene of a state and you're applying to study in their state university, you are less likely to get admitted. Then the next 55% is just what Jamb has given over to the universities, to the state universities, to do whatever they want with it. So they have their choice to determine how they will give admission with that 55%. But if your name is not included in any of the merit lists I've been talking about so far, there is still hope for you, because the next category that universities use for giving admission to students is the supplementary admission list. Most times universities release supplementary forms while others do not release supplementary forms. So this is where it's really getting dirty. It's now on God. We are now getting to the illegal part of it, or the secret quota that they have not been telling us about. We are now in the most interesting part of this video. If you quit watching the video now, you must have missed everything, because this is the real reason, or the main reason why I made this video. So continue watching. Remember that I asked you earlier whether you have seen university professors or university administrators' kids rewriting the Jamb exam even more than 2 times. And the most shocking truth about it is that no matter what, they still get admitted into their desired course, and most times their name doesn't just appear in the first merit list. There is a list that they release that their names are among. But why does this happen? Why are their names included in another list that is different from the merit list? Now I want you to understand something about the university admission process. So these universities have quotas for these university administrators and even the university professors. They have a particular quota for them. Remember that Jamb has already given them a quota that they should use for admitting students into a particular course. But then they also have their own quota. That is where corruption, or whatever you say, come into play. Even in some schools, their gatemen have their own quotas. Imagine. And most times when they release this list is after they have released all their lists, and some schools even call it VC's list. and some even call it other names. This is why you will see students with very low Jamb scores. You will see them getting admitted into these professional courses, into medicine, into law, into pharmacy. You see them getting admitted, and most times when they release their names is in that the VC's list. So these university professors or even these university administrators will now use those quotas and go and sell to politicians. This is where scammers come into play. I don't know whether you've seen people coming to tell you, bring money and I will give you admission. Some of them, most of them that are online are scammers. In fact, I would say it as a fact, 100% of them, anybody that is telling you to bring money online is a scammer. So whenever you hear about admission buying again, I want to tell you that it is possible. Some people buy their way into admission. Some people pay millions of naira just to get admitted into a particular course. And where are they getting this quota from? It is the professors or the lecturers that are selling it to them. But I want to give you a disclaimer. Anybody online that is telling you to bring money that they will give you admission is a lie. They will tell you that they have connections with professors or lecturers in a particular school. Don't believe them. They can even tell you that they are the professors or the lecturers. Don't believe them, provided that it's online, except your father is that lecturer or that professor. It's mainly for those people in the government. It's not just for the common man like us. Before I end the video, I would really like to know your thoughts about these catchment area stuffs that the universities are using. Because for me, the only thing that makes sense to me is the educational less developed states. It is understandable that the federal government is just trying to help and make these states to have people that are educated. But for this catchment area of admissions, don't you think that this is really dividing the country? Or don't you think that it is promoting tribalism in the country? And it is also important you know that there are some universities that don't use this catchment area of cutoff marks. They only use the national merit list and the educational less developed states merit list. And I think one of the universities is UI and Uni Abuja and the rest. I was once a victim of this catchment area of a sheet, and it took me years before I realized the formula that these universities are using to give admission to students. Presently, I'm studying pharmacy, but it took me years before I even gained admission. I would advise you to watch this video so that you can learn from my mistakes and so that you will get admission as fast as possible.